Oh my God.
This is a day for alacrity. A day for speed.
Output. Tools. Extensions. Every week.
Jake, speed. Alacrity. Efficiency.
I'm trying.
Productivity. Capitalism.
There it is.
Professionalism. Expertise. Important if true.
Stop. What is it, do you guys think?
This episode of Important If True is brought to you by Quip. Electric toothbrushes sent to your home with brush head refills every 3 months. Consider that. And if you go to tryquip.com/thumbs, that's tryquip.com/thumbs, you will get your first brush head refill sent to you for absolutely free. That's tryquip.com/thumbs.
It's February 8th, 2018.
And this is Important If True.
For Idle Thumbs, I am Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
And I am Jake Rodkin.
Oh man, that was a cliffhanger to that last one.
I am Jake Rodkin?
I think so. I think you are.
Okay.
But I can't be sure because you are not in the speed dial favorites on my telephone. So I have to double check your name by scrolling through my long contacts list. However, by contract, Nick Brecken is in my favorites speed dial on my iPhone telephone.
Well, I always get confused when I'm trying to talk to you, Chris, because you were listed in my phone
That's true.
as Dodgson with a picture of Dodgson from Jurassic Park looking kind of annoyed on the beach.
That is true, and has been that way for years.
Yeah, since we started selling the Cold Bloom beer
explain
koozie.
this bullshit.
Oh my God, okay.
Well, I didn't expect to go into this talking about the Cold
you have
Bloom,
to
but
explain
we're
it.
there. It's happening.
On our website, we have a store at store.idlethumbs.net, and we sell cheesy merchandise, most of which is just like t-shirts and soundtracks from like music you've played on our podcast before, Chris. But one thing that we sell is a beer koozie with a black and white sort of posterized image of Jeff Goldblum's face.
It's a yellow.
It's like a
koozie
bright yellow
with a
beer
black
koozie. Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
And it's called the Cold Bloom. And on the store, I was trying to figure out when we were taking pictures of this thing, what can we show its multi-uses of besides just putting a can in it to keep it cold. And it works really well as a holder for an iPhone, or did in the era of the iPhone 5. I think phones are probably too big to fit in the Cold Bloom these days.
Well, they're probably not too big to fit. You just have to stretch it a
They
bit.
just
'cause
make
it's
it.
small.
It's not.
But it'd be a weird, elongated
It's
Cold
not as
Bloom.
nice because it has a little hole in the bottom that you can thread your charging cable through.
You know what they say? It's not as nice to elongate your Cold Bloom.
Oh my God, no one should say that. Anyway, why were you talking about speed dial?
Well, you didn't explain the fucking Dodgson part.
Oh right, there's a picture. There's a picture on the store of Dodgson being like calling, and then a finger hanging up on him because we got Dodgson here. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. It means nothing.
Right. And so when we made that, you had to change me to Dodgson's because I could call you.
And you
then
called
in the
me, and then I
photo,
hung
would
up
show
on
up as
you.
Dodgson, but you've never changed. me
It's
back
really funny.
from Dodgson, which is so strange. It's been several years.
It's so entertaining to me on the very rare times that you actually call me.
Yeah.
Because then my phone lights up and it says Dodgson, and
Yeah.
I'm inclined in those very rare moments to hang up on you because it's so funny to me. But
Yeah.
instead, I talk to you.
You can look at this stupid picture at store.idlethumbs.net and click on the Cold Bloom. It is true that I am unlikely to call you, but a thing I realized now is that because Nick is remote when we do this podcast, I have to call Nick on the telephone every single week because that's how we do this.
Because you guys are good friends. That's what friends do.
Well,
They call each other on the phone.
and so as of like a week or two ago, I realized that Nick Brecken is there's two people in my favorites list on my phone, and they are my wife and Nick Brecken. So congratulations, Nick. You're one of my
Thanks.
two favorites.
Nice.
My smartphone says it.
My call list is just all you and everybody, like anything that's calling me that is just spam garbage.
Right. That is mine as well. Yeah. In fact, that is the reason I put you in the favorites, is because my brain was initially like, oh, well, I'll just go to recent calls and then, and Nick, and I'll just,
garbage.
But it's just fucking garbage. It's you, but you're buried under like 10 stupid, like blocked garbage calls.
Yeah.
It's just all garbage.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. It's all garbage, but one is the kind of garbage that I need to actually place every week. So,
because it's important if true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, none of these people are my favorites, but I guess Nick Brecken can be my favorite garbage. So
well, if there's a week that I'm out, you can just call one of those other numbers and see if anybody wants to be on a podcast.
That's true. Yeah, we can just reverse cut your hair, bro. Some of those numbers. Yeah. All right. Anyway, welcome to this podcast. Here we are recording it. So we didn't plan to talk about this when we were figuring out what we're going to talk about
You
today,
literally found this in the printer because you forgot about it.
Yeah, I meant to talk about this last week. I printed out the news story about it, left it there, and then just 2 minutes ago went over to the printer to get some other stuff I printed out, and this was there. And I thought, oh, wow, great. So are either of you familiar with Nigel the Lonely Gannet
Yes.
from New Zealand? Jake, you're aware of this. Nick, are you aware of this?
I saw a headline and I don't know the detail behind this.
Oh man, the details are very good. I am glad to share with you the details. So this is a story that came out just a few days ago, actually, and it's a story about a bird, a gannet. I wasn't even aware of this species, gannet, but it looks like sort of a seagull kind of bird.
Yeah.
That seems true? So the headline from The Guardian is incredible, which is, Nigel the Lonely Gannet dies as he lived, surrounded by concrete birds. So the story begins, if there is such a thing as a tragic life for a bird, then the life of Nigel No Mates, a New Zealand gannet, probably fits that bill.
Oh no, I didn't know that was his full name.
Yeah, Nigel, quote, No Mates, which sounds like a Cockney gangster, but is just about how he has no friends. At least no living friends. The deal with this bird is that he lived for years alone on an uninhabited island called Mana off the north of New Zealand. And incredibly, so New Zealand conservation officials years ago, on this island, they installed replica, immobile, painted concrete gannets.
So just like statues of these birds.
Just painted statues of these birds. They actually look quite realistic, except that they literally don't move because they're just made out of concrete. They're not like sophisticated audio animatronics or anything. They're just
This isn't like a
concrete
Porgs
birds.
situation.
No, this is no Porgs. So they installed concrete statues of these birds, and then they also installed a sort of sounds that sound like other gannets. With speakers that are solar powered, so they don't ever run out of power, and they have these bird calls that just go out from this island. And the point of this was an attempt to lure a whole colony of gannets to settle on this island as basically a reserve for these birds in an attempt to like juice the population. And what happened was it attracted exactly one bird named Nigel, who got there in 2013. Nigel then lived there for 5 years alone with these birds, so that is sad enough. But what's really sad is that Nigel for 5 straight years never gave up trying to make friends with these birds and like find a mate. He just sat there doing all of the like mating ritual stuff, all of the sort of making friends things that birds do, trying to become friends with these birds, and they are statues. So they did nothing. One of the like conservation rangers said, Nigel was very faithful to the colony. I think it must have been quite a frustrating existence. Whether or not he was lonely, he certainly never got anything back from these birds, and that must have been a very strange experience when he spent years courting them. I think we all have a lot of empathy for him because he had a hopeless situation. So it gets much weirder and even bleaker. So one, he was observed constructing a nest for his intended mate, for the statue he really liked.
Oh, Nigel.
Yeah, so he spent years making a nest, doing what he thought was grooming her feathers, sort of making bird sounds at her, and he never stopped doing this for 5 straight years. And then the outrageous part is that like 3 or 4 weeks ago, 3 more gannets finally came to this fucking island. 3 new birds finally came here, settled down, and then Nigel just apparently ignored them completely, remained totally aloof, and kept talking to his inanimate concrete chosen bird while these other birds just kind of hung out on this island.
See,
and did
God,
their
it's a
own
true
stuff.
tragedy.
This is like
And
this
then
is
he
this is
died.
like what actually should have been the end of Castaway is that he keeps the soccer ball and then he goes back to his hometown and doesn't care about anybody else. He just still talks to the soccer ball all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a volleyball.
Oh, whatever.
Well,
His soccer ball, Walter.
that's the American name for the volleyball.
Yeah.
Is the soccer
Yeah,
ball.
right.
It's-
Nigel.
I know. I mean, on the one, because you can start off with the sort of, it's this like really sad, desperate existence where he's just really.
But then he gets his
But
friends.
then he finally like actual real
God,
birds.
that
show
ends
up.
with just like the slow 1970s camera zooming out to the island with sort of the pinnacle of the island in the middle and the 3 new birds on one side and then Nigel and his 2 statues on the other just slowly panning away.
Yeah.
But he's dead.
Yeah.
Nigel is just dead.
It's so fucking bleak. I feel like Nigel is all of us.
Silent
Like,
cut to black at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Nigel is all of us. Yeah.
I mean,
True enough, Chris. Interesting.
Nigel is different subsets of us depending on how fucked up you want to get, right? I mean, like
Nigel's
there's-
definitely not on your contact list, on your most called list.
Nigel's not on anyone's most called list. He's literally not on anyone's
Yeah.
list of anything.
No.
Nigel has one person on his most called list, and they don't ever pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, there's dark directions to go with this that I will not because they freak me out. But I mean, just in general, there's sort of the like interacting with simulacrum of
Yeah.
sort of human interaction.
Well, just your perception of what the world is versus how the rest of the world perceives or cares about you is very much
yeah.
at the heart of Nigel's life and of the dread that it gives you.
Yeah. It also makes me like it when they choose a mate, like that's the weirdest part about. Well, no, it's not the weirdest part. It's a pretty weird part about this. Like, is there like a weird sort of male entitled thing here where he's like, look, if I just put in the work, she's gotta eventually be my bird mate. Like, I mean, is that what's going on in his head? Is it that sort of dynamic of just like,
Let's hope
I mean,
that it
I'm
is,
such
Chris.
a nice guy.
Let's
I'm
hope-
just
let's
here,
hope that
like,
Nigel
I'm building
is a
her
nice guy.
I'm building her this nest. I mean, I'm spending a long time doing it. I'm being really nice about it.
I mean, in that regard, it's probably good that Nigel died before he could become radicalized.
That's actually why he didn't, like, he's been so sort of,
Yeah, if Nigel had been able to get online, he would have been insufferable.
yeah. Anyway, I just thought this story was incredible, and really either really sad or really distressing,
Yeah.
depending on how you choose to interpret Nigel. I mean, the whole thing really does take on a weird tenor when the other birds arrive, and it sort of turns it from something purely tragic into something that is both tragic and also something else.
Yeah.
That's hard to identify.
I live in Oakland, and I live right near Lake Merritt, which is just a bit. It's a natural lake in the middle of Oakland that then sort of got walled up in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They sort of cemented the edges in and put a path in. But it's a huge lake right in the middle of the city, and it still has some sort of clusters of trees and parks around it that the city hasn't fully encroached on. And because it's near the San Francisco Bay and has one stream left that hasn't been totally culverted and replaced with roads that feed in, it gets some fish, but it definitely gets a ton of birds. And I was walking around Lake Merritt with Dana, with my wife, just a couple days ago, and there's a lot of night herons around Lake Merritt. And if you don't know night herons, they're a very good bird. I mean, when you think of a heron, you usually, I think of like
long legs,
like long legs, sort of super long neck,
Yeah.
like lithe hunters, like weird kind of dinosaur-esque birds. Night herons are like if a heron decided to try and be discreet by really awkwardly hunching itself into a trench coat and then sort of like looking around at everyone. Like their necks are totally packed in and they're dark gray, and they just sort of sit on the edge of the lake.
So it's
at
like
night.
they've got this sort of like upturned
pop
collar
collar.
Yeah,
of a private
look
eye.
like they look
Yeah.
like a nerd trying to look cool as far as birds go. Where they just sort of, because they're like hunched over and sort of like
Right.
when you get near them, they're like, oh, I'm trying to hunt, but there's like a huge person walking by, but I'm not gonna fly away because
Right.
then the thing that I'm hunting is gonna notice. So I'll just kind of sidle and hunch, and they crack me up because they're these like beautiful, interesting birds, but they're all over.
But they're just fucking dorks.
They're all over Oakland and they're dorks. So
Yeah.
their signs have just gone up that are like, please do not enter this part of the park. We're trying to create a safe breeding area for night herons. And they're doing the total Nigel thing where they have
Oh, shit.
sounds of birds
Oh, man.
playing out of these trees. And
Yeah.
Dana and I walked around a corner and we're like, what is that up there? That's like a really like obvious not hiding night heron. Oh wait, it's fake. So there's a fake night heron in a tree,
Yeah.
and we saw a female night heron sort of furtively walking into the woods, and we're like, don't go, don't be Nigel, don't do it. So like, I'm now. Every time I walk past this area, which has been a couple times this week now, all I can think about is
Yeah.
like any bird that goes in there is just walking into
Right.
a Twilight Zone episode. You're just going into like it's a tragic trap. You're being catfished by these woods. You're being like bird catfished weirdly. But yeah, that article coming out means that
Yeah.
it's
Now
just
you
these
just know.
awkward, like sort of sidling nerd
hopefully
birds who are just like, Jesus Christ.
Hopefully the sort of reality of it is different than Nigel's. Nigel's is this very like, I'm making you this nest, I'm doing this thing, I'm doing all this stuff. Hopefully, given your characterization of night herons, their version of it is just so like awkward and just
no,
like, oh shit,
jeez.
oh maybe they didn't even notice me. Let me just circle back around and approach again. I don't think they saw me the first. Oh no, oh shit, oh god, oh I'll come back and do it later. Oh
Yeah, it's those night herons are going to get radicalized for sure. It's going to be real bad. The Lake Merritt situation is crazy because it is a bird preserve, like it's a sort of water bird preserve. Like it has huge numbers of just like giant, like great pelicans that hang out there and all these animals.
Yep.
But it also borders like the Lucky shopping center parking lot. So instead of pigeons in this parking lot, there's just fucking great herons and
Wow.
night herons and stuff.
Yeah.
Basically like getting kicked out of the way by people who are trying to get
Oh,
to their car.
God.
Not like actually kicked, but you know what I
Right,
mean?
sort of
Like
shooed.
Yeah, you're shooing like these huge just like majestic
dorks.
dinosaurs and nerds and the nerd ones. It's a weird situation. Anyway, I hope they get out of that parking lot and just go awkwardly
Just, like, have
go on
sex a lot.
awkward dates. I don't know if they'll actually get to that point, Chris. I think they'll all just sort of go near each other. But you know, maybe they'll find
How has the
happiness.
species survived to this point?
I'm sure that it's just my perception of them, and they actually
okay. They're
just boning
total
all the
horn
time.
dogs.
Yeah, they're just going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Good for them.
The Lake Merritt Center for Thirsty Birds.
All right.
If only Nigel had gone there, maybe he would have found true love.
Yeah.
Maybe he would have met another nerd.
Nigel would have found that very distasteful. Nigel has very romantic opinions about mating, and he has very specific ideas about how it's going to happen when it definitely.
I was
finally
raised to believe that you fall in love with a cement block painted like a bird.
does. Spend 5 years building her a nest and then die alone in front of 3 other birds.
I have shown.
Sorry,
them.
that's just how.
That's
I was
what a
raised.
gentleman
I mean,
is. What are we talking about?
I don't know. We have an email though on a totally different note. Unless you guys have any more really good, important, sexy, frustrated bird stories. I'm glad Jake had against all odds, somehow had another story
about nerdy, horny birds. Look, it's all... If you know where to look, Chris.
I mean, now once it's a classic thing, right? Where now once it's been pointed out about these sort of
we're gonna get like
nerdy,
30
horny
emails
birds,
about
you're
this.
Now you're just gonna notice them everywhere. I mean, it's like you can't get it. It's right. I mean, it's just how it always is.
It's true.
So yeah,
that'll hold true in this case too.
I think so. Okay. On a totally different note, Matt writes in. If you turned on a TV in the 1990s, you know the slogan for Pringles potato crisps is, once you pop, you can't stop. Well, they stopped. Now their slogan is, apparently, you don't just eat 'em. What on earth am I supposed to be doing with these Pringles if not just eating them? Stay mild, Matt from Arizona. I did not. I think I might have seen this actually, but it didn't register in my brain.
Yeah, it's on the top of every Pringles tube now.
I don't know that I realized this actually replaced the official slogan, which is indeed that once you pop, you cannot stop. I mean, I guess it's good that you can stop now. I mean, in fact, you definitely can stop, and maybe you are being told to because you don't just eat them, or M. You don't just eat M.
What do you think the marketing is supposing that one does with Pringles if you don't just eat them? Do you think that they're trying, because like Q-tips, just like the little swab that people use like in their ear, but you're technically not supposed to. There's like
clean them.
Have you seen that there's
ears.
Like gendered Q-tips now, where there's Q-tips for everyone, and then there are Q-tips for men.
Like cuties. They're Q-tips for men.
No. Q-tips for men.
Are they tactical? Are they just the same?
Oh, dude, they're so tactical.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, they have like a corrugated metal pattern printed over the box.
Oh my god.
And it says the ultimate multi-tool.
No.
So
fucking stupid.
So I can only assume that you don't just eat them because like you can use the Pringles tubes to fucking jack up your car and change a tire or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. God, it's a replacement like exhaust.
Piss in it on a long car trip. Like I don't know what the actual Pringles are for.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends kind of what the emphasis.
Boil them.
Yeah, mash them. Piss in the can.
The Lord of the Rings movies really went downhill.
Oh yeah, what when Frodo
just starts?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's true. That was a bad moment.
Yeah, I didn't watch past the first Hobbit movie, but I assume the second and third ones involved what you've just said.
Yep. It depends, I suppose, on the emphasis. So I tried.
You don't just eat them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not
you don't just eat them. Not just you, Nigel. Remember,
they're for everyone.
They're for everyone.
In the case of Nigel, he'd be like,
and then Nigel, he just thinks it's a lover or something.
I feel like
I've been trying real hard for 5 years now to get anyone other than me to just eat them.
I eventually just ate them, and I felt great shame in this. Nigel.
I just ate them. I'm sorry.
But yeah, you're right that it could be.
You don't just eat them.
What does that even mean?
I don't know what that means.
Just that you don't just eat them implies that you do other things to them.
Right. Well, so does the next alternative, which is you don't just eat them, which is an even more suggestive version. Oh, sorry, what, Nick?
Well, I mean, you could also just read it like you don't just eat them.
You don't just eat
eat.
You have to also eat other things.
Well, maybe that's you don't just eat Pringles is part of this balanced breakfast or whatever. Right. Like, please do not subsist.
That's
off.
Actually
God, you don't subsist off Pringles alone. Is a shitty Super Bowl ad campaign where a person just eats Pringles and wacky things happen to them.
Right, that's true. I mean, it also could be a direct response to their previous campaign, which is once you pop, you can't stop. Which is like, look, I know that we are aware at the Pringles Corporation that when you start eating Pringles, you can literally never stop eating Pringles, and all you ever eat is Pringles. But we have to be able, legally, we've been informed, we have to stress, you cannot just eat them. You have to eat other things as well.
I think, though, this is actually, I mean, This is Pringles real talk here, Chris. I'm pretty sure that what this slogan is actually telling you is you don't just eat them, you devour them voraciously and in an unending way. I'm sure that's what it's actually trying to say. They've sort of muddled the message, but I'm pretty sure that's what they're saying, is that you basically just unhinge your jaw and slide the tube of Pringles down into it and then cough back out the empty tube.
Right. That is actually, I see. So that is in some ways an evolution of once you pop, you can't stop.
Yeah, this is sort of the velvet glove to the original Iron Fist of Pringles slogans.
Well, no, I think it's actually the other way around, because I think once you pop, you can't stop. I think the implication of that is like you try one and you're like, ooh, delightful. Then you have another one and you're like, oh, so nice. And then you keep eating one of them until they're all gone. But here you're sort of implying like, fucking don't even start with one. You're just like,
the slogan is just, you will eat all the Pringles.
Yes.
You will eat all the Pringles.
Yeah.
You have eaten the Pringles.
Yeah. But it is interesting to consider what the implications of two of the alternatives, which are Nick's, you don't just eat them, or the sort of its related cousin, you don't just eat them, because both of those kind of come with a waggly eyebrow sort of
right. There's either a smirk emoji or a sunglasses emoji affixed to either of those implications.
Yeah.
Just like,
you don't just eat them, you. I just
Jesus Christ, Chris. No.
I just mean it's such a like. I mean, there's such a, I don't know.
Elves behaving badly.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Tactical.
No.
The ultimate multi-tool. Wink.
I quite sure any slogan could have a sunglasses emoji or a winking emoji put at the end of them, and that's true. Like, I'm sorry, Chris, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
sorry,
once
I
you
ruined
pop,
it.
you can't stop.
Yeah, true. No, it's
sunglasses or winking emoji.
No, it's true. It's a horrible ruiner.
They're magically delicious.
All right. Sorry,
with a
everyone.
name like Smuckers, it has to be good.
Okay.
That one has always been bad.
Always been bad. Yeah. Smuckers. Ugh.
Fucking Smuckers.
Oops.
Well, excuse me.
I remember when I was growing up.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
My grandmother lived in Pennsylvania, and we would visit from New York. And I don't know if there just weren't Fuddruckers in New York, or if it was just not near where we lived, but there were definitely Fuddruckers in.
Oh yeah, I think everyone's first encounter with Fuddruckers, if it's not original chain where they grew up, is a notable experience.
Well, I just remember my mom and my grandmother were so distressed by me and my brother excitedly pointing out a Fuddruckers just off the highway or whatever. It was just something that made them really tense and unhappy, which just made us more excited
and you're like,
to discuss the Fuddruckers. Yeah. So Fuddruckers.
Stop.
Okay, let's take a break.
Okay.
All right.
Eat some Pringles.
Yeah.
Not just eat some Pringles, if you know what I'm saying.
I do know. I know exactly what you're saying, strangely.
I'm saying we should not just eat this food.
I'm aware. I don't like the look you're giving me right now. Or the sound you're making.
Oh.
I'm sorry for driving that one into the ground.
You drove it somewhere very specific. Erase this episode. Uninstall, unsubscribe. People replying to something on social media with just the word unsubscribe still is one of my favorite fucking things. It's really actually a rare drop, because people usually just
become less common, yeah.
Yeah, that's why when someone just says unsubscribe, I think it's just so funny to me. It's the desperate dad attempt who has some grasp of how the internet used to work and trying to apply that, and I don't know.
Yeah. This episode of Important If True is brought to you by a shout out.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually always surprised when we get a shout out, even though I go, wow, it's actually really cool.
You act like a dipshit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I genuinely think it's cool.
I agree. Well, this one.
Wow.
Oh my God. This one is a shout out for the podcast Video Death Loop.
Video Death Loop?
Video Death Loop. It is located at videodeathloop.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This is a podcast on which every week the two hosts watch a different short video on loop until they cannot take it anymore, which feels very much in the spirit of, I would say, the modern internet.
Yes.
So from the host of this show, he says, "We use the repetition to inspire improvised stories and funny discussions, building strange worlds around the idiosyncrasies of the videos. The listeners get to enjoy the commentary without being subjected to the video loop themselves." So I, Chris, did some research on this, and it looks like it started out as a YouTube thing, which makes sense, where they would, the video would be looping in YouTube, and then you'd hear their voices on top, and they've since migrated to a podcast.
To the Wild West, where you're not going to get content ID'd.
Yeah, that's true. What if the iTunes store started content IDing material?
A lot of podcasts would have a lot of trouble.
That's true.
I think.
Yeah. So get on the Video Death Loop train, I guess, before this old, shitty, busted form of podcasts catches up with the rest of the shittier capitalized internet, and this podcast is no longer able to exist.
Yeah, well, podcasts remain pirate radio.
Yeah.
Video Death Loop.
Yeah, Video Death Loop will give you flashbacks to the culture of your youth that you grew up with, like Beverly Hills 90210. That's just, I'm looking at their list of episodes, and that's one of the things they did was an episode on Beverly Hills 90210 TV opening. The Cheetos Pause commercial, which feels like something, Jake, that you would have remembered.
Anyway.
You can find Video Death Loop at videodeathloop.com or wherever else podcasts come from. I found it on Overcast, which is what I use. If you would like to put a shout out, either personal or commercial, on this podcast or other podcasts on our network, you can do that by going over to store.idlethumbs.net and clicking the thing about shout-outs, and you'll see it. Thanks to Video Death Loop for sponsoring this episode. All right, are we back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said it like that.
What?
I don't like that. Are we back?
Oh, yeah.
I guess we were back.
Nick and I have
back.
replaced ourselves with cement statues painted to look like ourselves.
Oh, God.
Oh, remember that episode of Idle Thumbs, of the Idle Thumbs podcast, where you just stopped talking, Chris, and then I noticed and stopped talking?
Yeah.
And then Nick
increasingly became unhinged.
Yeah, that was our version of the Nigel experiment. God, sorry, the Nigel experiment was not an experiment to just isolate a bird and make it sad.
Finally, after 5 years of our successful experiment, our subject has died. Mission accomplished.
He died alone.
Our plan to murder a bird in the most distressing and isolating way possible has finally succeeded.
Okay, well, since we're talking about bird experiments, we should maybe actually read this follow-up, because we talked about the crow. What's this? The crow bar? The crow cigarette project. Or was that in the Netherlands? Someone was trying to
it was somewhere
put little pods around the world that could ostensibly train crows to throw cigarettes in them in exchange for treats, which was based on an experiment that someone did a TED Talk on, where they claimed that they had made a vending machine where crows could be trained to put coins into the machine.
Right.
And in exchange, they would get a reward. And then eventually, maybe you could take away the reward and they would just be minions who give you money.
Right.
Unsurprisingly, this is a TED Talk. We got an email from Billy, who just says, sadly, it seems the crow vending machine never worked in the wild, and the New York Times published a correction, and the New York Times did publish it.
Like 9 years ago, they published a correction.
Yes, but this is what. So in Idle Thumbs, an important if true vernacular, this crow vending machine may have at least been a minor grade wax house.
Oh, it was total wax house, yeah.
Not necessarily in that it was entirely fabricated, because it wasn't fully fabricated, but its ability to just sort of meme its way out into the internet.
The thing that is actually a wax house about it is that the person who ostensibly made this crow vending machine gave a TED Talk, published all these articles, has a website, and claimed that he had actually successfully used it in a zoo and all this stuff.
Right,
and that wasn't true. He just straight up didn't do that.
And now there is internet knowledge based on top of that. Like, it's a foundational piece of other content that itself could be pulled out from underneath it, and it doesn't matter because the internet doesn't, like, there's this cigarette butt thing, whatever. I mean, like, this guy, his vending machine, it was an experiment that he had started to do. He did some tests of it in his apartment. He had a university professor help him with a couple of tests on a campus, which failed, and then he just basically fabricated the rest of it. He claimed he had done a bunch of work at a zoo. He had not done a bunch of work at a zoo. He claimed, or sort of lied by omission, that the university tests had succeeded. They had not. I believe that they're still selling little crow houses either related to or based on this guy's work.
Yep.
And also this cigarette thing seems predicated on the idea that the crow vending machine was and should be taken as a success.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways,
not.
that's what makes this an even more outrageous wax housing than the original wax house, in that apparently people are actually basing new sort of urban kind of research and planning on something that never worked in the first place.
This is as if someone made a new season of Sewer Sharks for Netflix, or Sewer Sharks. Sewer Shark is the Sega CD game of Street Sharks. It's like if someone made a new season of Street Sharks, the cartoon, and just put Roxy in it, and didn't care if someone pulled the foundation out from under them. We're like, that actually was just the guy who made it up.
The difference is that any version of Roxy is still a made-up character, so whatever. You could put her in the new one, and she's still equally just a made-up character. The difference is that the crow thing never worked in the first place, and therefore isn't going to work the second time. Like, you can't, like, will it into existence the way you can will Roxy, the made-up fucking street shark, a species that isn't real, into the world, because you can literally just animate her and then she's real now. It's
totally true. This crowbar business seems just destined to fail. Separate from the New York Times Magazine blog, or New York Times Magazine retraction article, there's a blog that I'll link to by a crow researcher that is really good and sort of talks about why people are inclined to believe this and why they're not, and just it's full of really good examples of, like, here are actual crow behaviors. Here's crows that make primitive tools. Here are crows that sort of bond to owners or friends and do bring them stuff in exchange for rewards, but it's always like this is a set of 4 crows that just live next to someone's house and actually build a relationship with the person the way that, like, a domesticated animal would. And, like, all that stuff is actually really interesting, and we'll link to that blog in the show notes. And it's worth reading just so that your anger will be focused on the crow vending machine guy and not on crows who continue to be awesome.
We need to really make sure that we don't accidentally.
It's true.
Why would anyone take this information and be like, fucking crows? I thought that they was. I
thought they were going to make me rich.
Bullshit. What the fuck?
Just put them on an island.
They're just as bad as those fucking dorky herons. Those nerds.
Weird birds only this week. What is happening? I just meant...
I hope they die alone on an island surrounded by statues, eating Pringles.
That's the way a bird should die. Greased up on Pringles, romancing a cement statue. No, all that I meant is that crows do a lot of the things that are interesting about the vending machine article, except for the part where you can train them to just give you money.
Right.
Like crows, it seems like the dividing line in sort of crow research is you maybe can't optimize random crows in the wild to train themselves to just give you money or cigarette butts.
What's the point of these animals existing if they aren't going to make me money? Send them to the island.
That's the end of our bird news.
That's the end of bird news, presumably.
Which took up 2
I mean, so even the amount of bird news we knew we were going to have going into this episode was higher than I normally would expect. And then the fact that we've had like tripled the amount of bird news that was intended for is pretty impressive. So I'm not really under like any particular... I'm not entirely convinced that bird news is over, but it might be.
Well, there was that Pringle news segment which we turned into bird news.
True. I mean, it's possible there might be no more bird news coming, but that more bird news might emerge from within the existing news.
We're doing it right now.
All these things are possible. Okay, whatever. Here's another email. JW writes, Since sandwiches are really intended for a single person with little mess or cleanup, they seem especially designed for the single person and thus to some degree a hallmark of the lonely. Whenever I am fixing my sandwich, Jake is like, you're having some kind of fit over
I
it.
feel like your decision to read this email right now is basically very deliberate.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about a food for people who are alone.
Lonely.
Perhaps
Yeah.
the only inhabitant of a waterlocked location
Whenever
of
I'm
people or living things.
Whenever I'm fixing my sandwich, quote, just the way I like it, unquote, it occurs to me that the act brings me pleasure and makes me feel somewhat pathetic and lonely. That's an interesting combination of things. This set me down the road of emotions being tied to specific foods and which foods are the loneliest. I'm curious about your thoughts. Big fan, JW.
Well, there are some real easy tiebacks to some previous conversational subjects here.
Yeah, you've made some of them.
I would say straight up eating a can of Pringles is
Yeah.
one of the loneliest experiences when it comes
It has
to
to
food.
be.
And that is one that I've experienced many times. Like just eating a whole something.
That's
Right.
what you don't just eat. You don't just eat. That's got to be the tagline then, right? They're just saying like,
Oh,
please,
you don't just eat
please make some friends. Just please get out there, share the Pringles.
Yeah.
Oh, the saddest experience is going to Costco, which like if
Oh,
you
man.
if you guys have ever been in a situation where you don't have a roommate but you have a Costco membership.
Oh, that was me. I used to live like. Oh, actually, the original apartment in which we recorded the original version of Idle Thumbs starting in 2008, I lived a couple blocks away from a Costco, and I lived in just a small studio apartment alone. And I had a Costco membership.
I don't know if this is just a West Coast experience because I'm going to talk about Red Vines as opposed to Twizzlers, but Costco sells the tub of Red Vines that in huge writing says 1 pound on it, and it's just.
Oh, I know that tub.
And it's that's a classic tub.
That's a very classic
Video
tub.
game development studios often buy that tub, which is a bad decision. But occasionally, an individual living alone will buy a tub of candy that in huge writing says 1 pound on it, and its only job is to eventually be empty and make you feel really alone when you look at an empty thing that says you ate 1 pound of like waxy, gooey red licorice.
Yeah.
And like it's passed through you,
Yeah.
and no one saw it but yourself, but you know that you did it because there's just a big huge piece of like Exhibit A is just of your life is sitting there, and then you paint a bird onto it and continue to live there alone.
That's when a crow flies by your window, perches on your balcony, and goes, "Waxy pound, baby."
No, it does not. Shh, boo, boo, fuck you.
You just said you ate a pound of waxy fucking whatever.
I'm just being true to the form of Red Vines.
Yeah.
It's true. Red
Yeah.
Vines, you have to really want your candy to be waxy.
Everything about that waxy pound is terrible too, because the lid is this like shitty sort of plastic.
It
thing that's
ostensibly
it's so
unscrews, but it
flimsy.
never
Yeah,
unscrews.
It's just a flimsy piece of shit that you sort of just smush back onto the top, and it
Yeah.
just feels it's so low quality. It correctly communicates the shittiness of the entire enterprise
Yeah, no,
and everything
that
relating
basically,
to it.
if you live alone, that is your cement bird for like the 3 hours that it has candy in it.
Yeah.
I wonder if there is an East Coast Twizzlers equivalent of that huge, disgusting tub. I bet that Twizzlers doesn't make the shame tub. And for that, I think Twizzlers is worse. Like, be honest with yourself, Twizzlers lovers. Demand that they make you a shit, gigantic, shameful tub of candy that you can put in your house instead of a bunch of individually wrapped packages.
Yeah.
Yeah. For your plastic trash instead of your wax trash.
Is there a way to like Etsy your DIY your empty tub into something useful so you can sort of fool yourself into believing that?
You mean like could I get like a yarn bomb, like
Yeah.
a perfect wrap that says like cookies or something on it?
Right, yeah.
Treats for the dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Great ways to plus up your
Turn it into a compost
your
bin.
shame pound.
I don't know, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know either. What do you guys think about this sandwich argument, though?
That sandwiches are the loneliest food?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've established that they are not the loneliest food.
No, because that 1 pound Twizzler,
That 1 pound Twizzler
oh my
or the
god,
foot-long
Red
Pringles.
Vines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's a bad time. I understand the point though. I mean, because a sandwich, it is like it has sort of a preparation ritual to it that you can go through every time, but it's also just stuff you can kind of buy in a grocery store. It's not actually cooking for yourself,
Yeah.
really. And then you can sit on a couch and eat it with one hand while you hold
Yeah.
the TV remote in another hand, which is also not true of like real cooking for yourself.
True.
Basically, where you. Although I don't know if real cooking for yourself is actually lonelier. It really depends on the person. Because then if you're like, I'll set one placemat and
Yeah.
a full
A full
Yeah.
spread.
3 utensil place setting, and then a napkin, and then put a plate down and and then plate a meal and then eat it.
That's definitely
for
the
sure lonelier.
Nigel treatment of loneliness.
No,
Where that's like-
Nigel makes 2 every time,
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
And then
no,
eats
you're
both.
right.
and then eats
that's-
one, and then since he's a bird, looks at the other one and goes, "Wow, there's food there," and then eats it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that would be even lonelier.
Yeah, but
Of
that's
your
that's
home
a
cooking.
conscious choice, though.
Yeah.
I mean, well, to make 2.
Yeah. I read this long article by complete coincidence a couple weeks ago in The Guardian about the history of the British packaged sandwich industry, which the notion of like a pre-made packaged sandwich sold in a grocery
like-
store
like
or a
Pret a
convenience
Manger
store
or
The ones that
something?
are sort of
cafe.
in the triangle.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, Pret a Manger was like
Yeah.
one of their key examples, and this is a fairly recent historical phenomenon. Apparently, it's like a multi-billion pound industry, and apparently the British packaged sandwich industry is the envy of the sort of pan-European packaged sandwich industry, and British packaged sandwich corporations are like the most innovative and efficient and profitable packaged sandwich makers
God,
among
British packaged sandwich industry is just this horrible word collection.
Sorry.
It's really hard to say and
it's got a bad mouthfeel for you.
yeah, it's bad mouthfeel.
Bad
Unlike
ear feel?
British packaged sandwiches, which apparently have a notably
wonderful
high quality
mouthfeel,
mouthfeel.
yeah. And one of the sort of sub-thread, just sort of background threads running through this whole piece is that the rise of the British packaged sandwich industry is sorry, this little ASMR for
Sorry,
out there.
I just this whole segment is just turning into like an Orson Welles outtake now. It's just the British packaged sandwich. Fuck it.
there's no way to say
There's no-
British
there's no-
packaged sandwich industry. Yeah.
It actually does. It is like an ASMR sensation that simulates the sound of unwrapping a British packaged sandwich.
British packaged
It's just like
sandwich
you can imagine.
industry. It's crinkly.
Yeah, it's got that crinkly feel.
Yeah.
The satisfaction of a crinkly British packaged sandwich wrap.
Yeah. Oh, gross.
That's now getting deep into the Orson Welles commercial. In fact,
We'll link the Orson Welles frozen peas commercial that Nick is referring to for those who are not familiar with it. Link that in the episode description. Anyway, there was sort of a sub-thread to this whole article, which is
Really?
that the British packaged sandwich industry's rise has sort of been in parallel with the sort of
downfall of England.
rise of, I mean, you could read it that way, but sort of the rise of ultimate capitalist free market modern labor practices in places like the United Kingdom and the United States, where productivity is the kind of holy grail, and with these new British packaged sandwiches, people can just dash out on their lunch break, grab a sandwich, keep working while eating the packaged sandwich alone in their cubicle, and boost their productivity for the day while still enjoying a delicious lonely treat.
As opposed to just having a nice lunch, which is what people
Right,
used
as opposed to
do.
taking
A
time,
lunch.
going somewhere, sitting down, conversing.
You have convinced me that a sandwich is the loneliest food.
Yeah.
Like guaranteed. Now I'm sold 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think at least based on scale, I think you have to take that into account, right? Like, if given the fact that this is an entire global industry that has revolutionized the way people consume lunch, I think you have to factor that in to your definition of loneliness. It's like, is a food is a food sort of the platonic ideal of this food?
So-
is that in
so-
theory lonelier?
Like, I mean, because there's a big difference between the sandwich and, say, like a slice of pizza or a hot dog cart, because that
Yeah.
you're going to eat on the street
Did you say
amongst
a hot dog tart?
cart.
Oh,
like
cart.
yeah, like that those foods you're going to eat on the street, like amongst
Yeah.
other people.
I see,
Like
sure.
despite the fact that you may not talk to anybody, at least you're like out in the world. But the sandwich you're never going to like grab and then just
Right.
like pull out of its
Well, you're
wrapper
buying
and
it.
sit there on the curb and
Exactly,
like
yeah.
eat the sandwich.
The packaged
like,
sandwich.
Yeah.
The packaged sandwich is built for its packaging to be thrown into the little wastebasket at the desk of your office.
Yes,
It is
right.
as opposed to like the street pizza. As it's called. Yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
hot dog cart or a pizza cart.
roadkill? Yeah. The actual loneliest food is the dead crow you scrape off
No,
the
the packaged
highway
sandwich
and then
is 100%
furtively
it.
consume in the
'Cause,
forest.
Chris, a thing that you and I talk about a lot after we record these episodes, and only occasionally talk about on the episode, but it's sort of the important if true, like sadness vector is new developments that give people a thing that they want or need or claim to want or need, but upon receipt of that thing, their happiness actually decreases.
I mean, right. It's not so. It's more that new developments that people neither want nor need, but are compelled to consume
Right.
in a
or
way
profess to want.
Right.
I
Sure.
want something. I want everything to be cheaper. Does not actually improve the quality of your life. But
Right. At least not in way. I mean, it might in some ways, but have
it has
completely
It's a
unpredictable.
bump in the rug that,
Yeah.
that turns into a
That spirals out
cataclysmic
into
wave,
potential disaster
But I feel like
the world at large.
The packaged this context of the sandwich turns it into one of like a pretty good ultimate form of that, of just like.
Yeah,
It actually compounds
cheaper lunch, It is
loneliness.
a faster lunch.
Yeah,
in theory, it allows you to sort of do more with your day, to have more remaining disposable cash. But are you taking advantage of those things?
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, or does it actually just give you more gaseous time to fill with the bad parts of your life?
Only it depends what the ingredients in the sandwiches are. That determines how gaseous your time is.
Why are you such like a butt guy today? God.
Sorry.
Important if true, parentheses, just butt stuff with Chris Rainbow. So Nick and I may have been replaced with cement statues, but Chris was replaced with an important if true host from the dimension where we still are just talking about poop and butts all the time.
Sorry to tell you, Jake.
From the Bristol verse.
You're in one. Yeah.
God damn it.
Well, I think they're getting close to wrapping up this episode, as one may wrap a British prepackaged sandwich. You don't ever rewrap those.
So this
let's be honest.
episode, no, you throw it away. So you're saying this episode has been meticulously and efficiently compartmentalized to deliver a payload that seems appealing, but ultimately leaves you lonely and wanting, and then you throw the unused portion away.
Yeah. I mean, what else can we hope for?
Yeah. And then you die alone on an island.
On an island surrounded by concrete versions of you. That's actually something
That's
I really...
offensive, Chris. Those birds are all unique individuals.
Okay.
Don't say they all look the same.
Hold on. That's a thing that I really wonder about, though, with animals. Like, I mean, No, I'm serious.
Go on.
Why?
Why do all animals look the same?
I know that sort of seems like a weird thing to say, except that this fucking guy, this bird, was legitimately fooled for 5 straight years by concrete versions of himself. Like they must not look that different. It's like, oh, we can literally just make these, paint them, and he will believe that they are real living ones of
that's
him.
true.
Like
Fair enough.
That is kind of weird, right? I assume not all animals are like that.
But I also feel
some of
like
them are.
living versions of many birds are able to identify and bond with an individual one, and then another one that looks kind of like comes by. I don't think they're like, you are my bonded life
No,
mate.
I know. I mean, and I know that they have mating ceremonies and they choose each other based on factors that are inscrutable to me, a human. But nonetheless, sometimes you see this kind of shit, and you're like, maybe they don't know anything.
Yeah, I wonder if that. I mean, I feel like there's many lessons one could learn with that go in many directions. Nick, what do you got to say?
Well, no, I'm just imagining like somewhere someone's training a bird to just like tweet out political tweets, and the bird is just like cackling because you're like, just it seems like they don't know anything, but like right now, like the whole world, nobody knows what's real anymore. Like what?
I see what you're saying.
We're completely stupid. Like,
Yeah. No.
God, you really threw me with the
Humans are
idea of a
terrible.
bird putting out a political tweet because a tweet is like a bird thing. I was very confused.
no, yeah,
was
no.
very
I mean, that's what I'm
I
getting
see what
at.
you mean,
Like,
though. You're saying that somewhere there's a bird
Yeah.
that is trying to lure humans to an island by just making a bunch of shitty Twitter bots and just creating
Yeah.
fake
I
sort
see
of
what you're saying.
pseudo-humans that are just sort of the shape of a digital fingerprint.
Right. Meanwhile, I'm over here being like, birds are so dumb. They
Yeah.
can't even discern reality from fantasy. Yeah. As I
Anyway,
just,
we-
as
I mean-
I and all of us just sink deeper.
I mean, we're
into-
convinced
as
they're out
birds are
there
all
just
sitting
like
there-
picking up our cigarettes, but they're not even doing that, and they have us convinced.
That's true. We literally, yeah, no, that's
Yeah, as birds are going, look, these idiots think that we're going to give them money and pick up their garbage.
Wax house,
Because
baby.
one guy-
Wax house, baby.
Wax house! It's true.
Yeah.
It's all true.
Oh, it's so important.
No.
Oh. None of this shit matters.
No.
All right, should we endorse?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll go first, Chris. I have a crucial
Oh man,
endorsement.
Jake volunteering to go first. Okay.
Speaking of things that don't matter at all but are important, this is a thing that this is a thing that you didn't know that you wanted, but will actually improve your life.
Okay,
It's also the stupidest thing.
I believe it.
My friend Jordan has finally finished a 3-year-long project, which is to re-implement Winamp 2 in the web browser.
What?
You know Winamp?
Yeah, I mean, I know what Winamp
Remember
is.
Winamp?
It really whips
Yeah, it really
Lotus
kicks
ass. It's
on
like
its- yeah,
old
it's not-
It's an old MP3 player. It was sort of like the MP3
I, in
playing.
fact, still use Winamp for various just purposes.
Yeah.
Part of my job is like audio related, and I still use Winamp sometimes. for
It's a
that.
really fast audio player for just as convenient. But yeah, Winamp was sort of the one that sort of ignited the MP3 craze in
Yeah.
a lot of ways by
Uh-huh.
making it really
yeah,
easy to
yeah.
play them.
Napster plus Winamp was a classic combo.
It's a good
back
combo.
In the day, yeah.
So, as sort of just a novelty thought experiment, my friend Jordan wondered how much of the Winamp feature set he could re-implement inside of a web page.
Uh-huh.
And has now gotten to 100%. So you can open up. He has a website on GitHub that you can open up, and
So
it
that
just,
includes like playlists and stuff?
yes.
Wow.
Right now it just opens up the classic Winamp 2 window. If you drag an MP3 onto it, it will play it. If you press the playlist button, it will open a playlist, and you can drag a bunch of local MP3s into that, and it creates a
Wow.
playlist. If you drag a Winamp skin file on it, which is technically actually a zip file, he found a library that can unpack zip files inside of browsers. So you can literally drag a Winamp skin file into your browser window, and it will change to the Winamp skin.
Wow.
So it has playlists, equalizers, and the main player.
Does he have some built-in skins that are already preloaded?
Yes,
onto
and
the
there's
website?
some
Okay.
preloaded skins as well. But yeah, if you
So
just
some
go,
just like sick swoopy,
Yeah.
like green neon.
yeah. So if you want to relive,
hacker skins,
yeah, and it all actually works correctly. Like I think because of the way MP3 streaming inside of a web browser works, streaming files doesn't work quite as well as you'd want. But that's the same as literally any MP3 player in a web browser. Like it's not quite as responsive as Winamp in some use cases. But basically, if you have a sort of nostalgic sweet spot for Winamp and want to re-experience it with any MP3 files that you have either on your computer or just URLs, you can go to his website and re-experience all of it. And I asked him.
Is there like a easy to remember?
I'll read the link out right now.
Okay.
He posted to Twitter about it today because he had finally gotten all three of the main windows working: the equalizer, the playlist, and the main Winamp window. And my next question was, are you going to get visualizers to work maybe using WebGL? Because that's the other sort of Winamp aesthetic, is the cheesy, like, traced color cycling lines that you could full screen to like see your music. And then he said, actually, someone is already working on that as a branch of his project.
Wow.
So Winamp visualizer support may also be coming.
That's amazing. Okay, so yeah, he's not technically at 100% functionality.
If you right, he has his functionality is 100% of the 3 Winamp windows, but
I see.
Winamp plugins and the visualizer don't work.
Got it.
It's a long URL actually to get to, but I'll read it off just in case. Anyway, if you go to jordaneldredge.com, which is JordanEldredge, jordaneldredge.com/projects/winamp2-js. Will go to this project, and then it also links to his GitHub page and to some other stuff. But it's just literally a copy of Winamp, so go check that out if you like Winamp.
Thanks, Jake. All right, Nick, what is your endorsement?
I'm going to endorse an activity, a very simple activity, but one that is a bit of a rabbit hole. I'm going to endorse learning how to draw, not actually knowing or being good at drawing or like, let me just be clear, I'm not good at drawing, but the act of attempting to learn how to draw is what I am endorsing.
Okay.
If you're anything like me, as a kid, you probably spent a lot of time like drawing and just generally, farting around on a, canvas of some kind. And I like, actually, you know what? This would be a good touch point for this. Every time I go to Disneyland, there's a specific, one of my favorite sort of like, it's not a ride, but it's just like, I don't know, what do you call a non-ride thing at Disneyland? Just like a place you go and there's like a thing to do.
attraction.
It's just an
An
attraction.
interactive thing, and you go and it's the drawing.
What is
it's
it?
the learn how to draw thing that they
yeah.
have. And you sit down
The
in a little
California
auditorium, and there's just a sketch artist who teaches you how to draw like a Disney
Yeah,
character.
that's great. That's really
Yeah,
like
I
that.
love
I've
doing
only done
that.
it once, but it was really fun.
I love doing it. The problem that I have is that you're surrounded by like 6-year-olds. And at the end, you have to hold up your drawing and show everybody what your drawing was. And
Yeah.
every time it is a fucking embarrassment for me. Like every time I just look like the biggest fucking baby because I can't draw anymore. I haven't drawn anything in like
Wait, hold on a
25
second.
years.
Are you saying you go to Disneyland California Adventure,
Yeah.
go to a drawing class, and then are like crushed with shame when 6-year-olds draw better than you?
Yeah, no, I
Is
love
that the situation
29
you're
minutes
describing?
and 30 seconds of that, but the last 30 seconds is just the worst. I've taken it just like, I'll take
I'm trying to
Janelle's.
identify what part of it is the
Yes,
part
that is the part.
terrible
It's
to-
where
That's the
6-year-old
part.
is
That's
like,
the part.
I drew Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, and mine looks like Stitch.
Yeah.
And Nick is like,
I crumple it
mine is
up
worse.
before, like I just throw it away, or like I take Janelle's and write my name on it and then hold that up. Like I just, every moment of that, like I hate it. So fast forward to like a couple of weeks ago, Janelle, my girlfriend, has a sort of routine where she just has a big like spiral bound sketchbook, and at night if we're just sitting on the couch and like watching something or doing something that's sort of passive, she'll just pull it out and spend like 20-30 minutes just kind of sketching. And like in the last couple of weeks, I've just like been stealing her sketchbook after she's finished and just kind of farting around. And then she bought me my own sketchbook at a certain point because I was just, destroying her sketchbook with garbage. And I actually find it really relaxing. Like, I'm not good, but I'm definitely improving in the way that, like, you kind of... Like, drawing, I find, like, in my head, even though I know that a lot of it is just a matter of practicing, I still, like, associate it with something that is just... If you're talented at drawing, you're talented. And if
Sure.
you're not, then you're not. And you're just never going to be good at it. But just passively doing it on the couch and not actually sitting down, like saying, I'm going to learn how to draw for an hour. Like just kind of doing it as just like I'm fucking around kind of activity.
What kind of stuff do you draw?
Just like figures or just, like other, like just, just people basically, just
Wow.
like stuff off, just like, like pictures of people's. I'll just draw Janelle's face, just like if she's just like watching
Jesus
something.
Christ. I would be so crushed and
Oh God. It's
demoralized by my
So-
own attempts that I could never
Yeah.
do this.
There's definitely like a hump even within the like a single night for me where like I'll just get frustrated, throw the thing down, stare at it for a while, and then just get like mad enough that I'll pick it back up and like try again. Like it's not always enjoyable.
That's
it's not
that's
always
the difference
enjoyable
between the two of us.
Yeah, it's not always enjoyable, but I will say that I've actually, as on the whole, I've been finding it really interesting, and I don't know if I'll keep up with it, but it's definitely like buying your own sketchbook and just like doing it as something where if you've got like a thing on in the background, I find was like the way to kind of mentally free up my mind from saying like, oh, this is a serious attempt at like doing something, like just kind of treating it as if you were just like reading your phone or something.
And what benefit do you think has accrued to you from doing this?
None whatsoever. No, I mean, I think actually like
I mean, I say because you're endorsing it, so I'm curious what your motivation for endorsement is.
I find it valuable in and of itself, just as an activity that is relaxing, but also I suspect it will probably just give me a better appreciation for, I don't know, like just art in general.
Yeah.
In long term, like even just like learning how to like block out a figure, I think has been valuable to me. I don't know if it'll be valuable to like everybody, but I think it's
Sure.
I think it's definitely like valuable in general.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have a chained on endorsement to this, which
Sure.
is maybe up a similar alley, but would benefit a different type of person who's interested in this sort of thing. which is if you're interested in upping your basic art acumen or your ability to appreciate visual art, but don't think that you have the sort of personality that would get you to just draw every night. This is a thing that some people also would completely never do, but some people would. It is just take an intro to studio art class or an intro to drawing a composition class in the evenings at a local community college or JC. Like, I'm a shit illustrator. Even though my job is a graphic designer or a user interface designer, like, I can't draw for crap. But not actually in college, but in summers between college, I did a couple of just like intro to drawing and composition classes, intro to studio art, like learn how a charcoal pencil works, draw like some still lifes, draw model studies. And it was just like 1 or 2 nights a week for a couple of months. And I feel like my ability to understand the process behind art and the thinking that goes into art went up like exponentially just in that. And I think that you would probably get similar takeaways by making yourself do the work of just trying to make sketches that you're happy with over time. But in that structured version, I feel like it probably upped my ability to draw, but more than that, I think it gave me a working understanding and respect of the process in a way that lets me look at something that's really well executed and good, and I can imagine my own shitty hand doing a shit version of it in a way that, like,
anybody that's taken like a survey course in college knows, or like in high school even knows, that like that stuff will years later pay off in a way that you didn't expect.
It's just a studio art class is interesting though, in particular because you have to buy the huge board, and you have to buy the huge sketch pad and the pencils and charcoal or whatever, and you have to actually make it, which is different than like an intro to critical studies or a history of art or of a piece of history.
Well,
or
it's
whatever.
the difference between a sort of appreciation and practice.
Yeah, and
both of which are valuable but are very different.
Yeah, but just I only wanted to mention it because even like, I should just draw every day is something that I tell myself, and I know that it would even benefit my career, and I'm probably not going to do it. But I would
it's hard
actually,
to be self-directed.
Especially as I get older, I would be way more likely to actually make myself go enroll in a class.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a very good set of experiences and endorsements. All right. My endorsement, actually, I will preface my endorsement with an addendum to a previous endorsement. About a couple months ago, I endorsed the iOS app of the New York Times crossword puzzle, which as I said, I do every day. And since then, I keep forgetting to mention this, but since then I've gotten a number of emails, tweets, whatever else, of people informing me that there is in fact a good Android version of that app now, which there wasn't the last time I had an Android phone. It was the version they had was awful. It was like a port of the BlackBerry version, which was already bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it was horrible. Apparently, at some point since then, I don't know when, it's been replaced with a very nice, new, up-to-date, completely remade Android app of the New York Times crossword. So regardless of whether you have an iOS or an Android phone, the New York Times crossword has a good app for it. Also, I want to give an update. When I first endorsed that crossword app, I think I said my daily streak, which is when you complete a crossword puzzle before, it's something like, at least in the Pacific region, it's something like before 10 p.m. on the day of the crossword's release, then it gets added to your streak. And if you consecutively do this for many crosswords in a row, you essentially have what amounts to a high score. And I think at the time I said my streak was something like 35 days. Mentioning that must have made me more speedy in terms of getting them done on the actual day instead of letting them tick over into the following day. Because now I am on my new highest streak, which has blown away my previous record of 35 or whatever it was. I'm now at 81 days running. So I mean, I must be pretty much on a streak from when I first recommended that app, or even farther back than that. So good for me. Anyway, it's on Android
Chris.
now. The other endorsement is something that is so stupid. It's even stupider than a fake version of Winamp that runs in a web browser.
That's not stupid at all. So
I mean, it's not stupid. It's impressive. But what I guess I meant was like,
That's fine, Chris. I know what you meant. I know what your heart says.
you know, what my heart says, I am going to endorse an app called Matt Hancock MP. Are either of you familiar with this?
No.
No. Okay, Jake, no?
No.
A member of parliament in the United Kingdom has released, whose name, by the way, is Matt Hancock,
Yep.
has released a social network named after himself. It is an entirely self-contained social network called Matt Hancock, and you can download it on iOS or Android and create an account on it. I would strongly recommend not using your main email address signing up for this, because according to some reporting, this is shockingly not the most secure network ever created. But you can make an account on Matt Hancock NP and interact with other people who have made accounts on Matt Hancock NP. Ostensibly, the purpose of this app is for members of Matt Hancock's local UK constituency to sort of talk about local issues, but there's nothing preventing literally any human being on the planet from signing up for an account on Matt Hancock.
That sounds
NP.
really good. That sounds
Yeah.
like it's a good social network.
Yeah, it's really fucking
Looking for
dumb.
your Twitter alternative? We've found it.
Yep. It's the main feed in a sort of weird, like, almost dystopian touch. The main feeds of the app only allow posts by Matt Hancock himself. So it's just this like never-ending feed of just like low-level political sort of propaganda, basically, of Matt Hancock like speaking at local events and
Right.
you know, like talking about his activities in Parliament or whatever, and sort of talking about how great the Conservative Party is, of which he's a member. But if you go to the Have Your Say section, it's just a full-on fucking fake Facebook where just everyone is in here posting shit, and of course there are just like infinite Matt Hancock memes that have now been created, and people just posting about bullshit and talking.
This era is one that I've kind of hoped will get bigger. I mean, right now, like in the last year, people have talked a lot about how increasingly, especially for sort of online savvy folks, the amount of conversation and hours spent on like big social networks seems to have receded a little bit in favor of sort of pocket communities like Discord or Slack chat systems, or people who are going and either chatting using Mastodon to replace Twitter or talking on instances of Mastodon. I hope we can get even more boutiquey than that, so that it's just like this is the dream for me of just like a little it's just like a tiny pinprick in the internet that if you look inside of it could be an entire fully fledged social network. I mean, in this, because it has the infrastructure to be a terrible one.
It is one in theory. Yeah,
like steamed hams, but it is an entire social network with 2 million active users.
Yeah, right.
Like we could. That's basically what this is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, right. Exactly.
With its own stupid meme culture and like whatever.
Ben Burbank, a friend of ours, or coworker of mine and Jake's, he also made an account on this, and we have just
are
been
you guys
sending
friends?
each other. Yeah, we're friends. He's my only friend on Matt Hancock, and he and I just send each other messages through Matt Hancock.
What's your like? Do people have the ability to friend you? Can they look up?
I
Chris
don't know.
Remo?
I mean, my name is just Chris Remo, so
okay, so everyone should sign up. Can you
set me up on Matt Hancock?
God, can you set
y'all?
up groups inside of this as well?
I don't know.
Because if you can,
I have absolutely no idea.
We got to get the official important of true sort of community awareness center inside of Matt Hancock MP.
Yeah, I actually don't know the answer to
like,
that.
does it have hashtag support? Like, we gotta.
I don't know. I don't know the answers to all this. Oh, another thing is I forgot. This is an amazing thing I mentioned. There also is there's a section called live stream, which is reserved for just Matt Hancock live streaming himself. But there's a constant like real time chat.
So people are there all the time.
That is on whether or not a live stream is happening, and you can set up the app to notify you when Matt Hancock starts streaming himself live. I mean, in a way, it's sort of a weird monument of egocentrism and sort of like you could imagine this being used in really distressing political contexts if operated by someone with any real political power.
Yeah, what if
in
Donald
the
Trump
world.
made this?
Exactly. In fact, I'm kind of shocked he hasn't, to be honest.
Matt Hancock could sell this to Donald Trump right now for a stupid amount of money.
No, because Matt Hancock, this is apparently just a white label thing that you can just buy.
What's the price of this, Chris?
I mean, I'm sure it's expensive to some degree because it has to be ongoing maintained.
Yeah, but like our Patreon's doing all right.
I'll just like an MP. Are you suggesting we make an important if true
Yeah.
social network?
Yeah.
Oh
Important
my
if true dot online. Important if true dot network.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Chris, we could be live streaming this only to people who are on our bespoke
Social
boutique
network?
social network.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we could research it. If anyone knows, there's a specific company that made this for Matt Hancock, and they, I think, just do this for companies. Probably usually not individual human beings, but usually probably for companies that have some reason to have this, but no one really has any reason to have this, which means we might as well have. Anyway, that's my worthless endorsement. The app Matt Hancock MP, available on iOS and Android, possibly also coming soon, importantiftrue.online. We'll see. We'll see if that pans out.
Importantiftrue.zone.
Importantiftrue.zone. That's definitely what it is. You're right. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Important If True. If you head over to importantiftrue.com, you could subscribe to this podcast, and for every episode of the show, see show notes, see all the links of things we've talked about. If you're watching this on YouTube or anywhere else, and you don't, so if you're listening to this on a podcast reader, all the show notes should be in there as well. But if you're somewhere that doesn't have those, head over to importantiftrue.com. And every episode has all those links. I'm just saying this because sometimes we get people commenting on our YouTube videos asking for links to things. Jake is amused by something.
I was looking up some domain names for our possible social network, and my first choice was my-online.zone, which is available, but then Hover recommended my-online.online. Oh, and I feel like myinternetgroup.com is available. There's this combination.
What did you start searching for? These are the answers.
My-online.zone was my first search, and it's giving me just a bunch of algorithmically generated myonline.mom.
Yeah.
Anyway, myonline.online could be the home of our future.
Sure.
Oh, maybe we should get importantiftrue.pro because it's the social network for professionals.
For professionals. And then we could also have importantiftrue.pro/sumer, which is the prosumer free. That's the free trial version.
Myonline.enterprises is available. Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, whatever. Anyway, importantiftrue.com also has all the other information about where we can be found on the internet.
None of the domains I just listed are where we can be found.
Yeah, none of those are going to resolve. Sorry. If you would like an ad-free version of this show, you can pledge to our Patreon at patreon.com/importantiftrue, and the details of how to do that are there on that page along with other options. If you have a question, a quandary, need some advice or explanations, go ahead and send that in to questions@importantiftrue.com, and we will do our best. And I think that's about it. I think that's all we got for this week's episode of Important If True. For Idle Thumbs, I am Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Stay spicy.
Stay spicy, but don't just eat them. What if we spun up our own social network that we then abandoned but offered access to only to Patreon backers? Browse our unmaintained, abandoned social
We're
network.
expecting subscriptions to go way up when we replaced anything tangible or of value with this unique opportunity.
Well,
to be part of an exclusive community at importantiftrue.zone/online.website.
Well, if we just live streamed our bullshit out to it, it would totally be fine.
What, like this, recording the podcast?
Yeah.
Jesus, that's terrifying.
But it's only through an exclusive app, which means no one would watch it.
It means the only people who would watch it are the people willing to give us such a fucking outrageous amount of benefit of the doubt that would probably be okay. That's the only chance we have, is basically sort of sympathy and trust that that borders on pity.